It's recording. That's always good. Hi, everybody. We will start in just a moment. We're going to let everybody kind of come in. That's what we do with these Zoom webinars, right, Dave?
Yep.
We start it, and then people kind of turn on and sit in
They
their.
don't even know that we've stolen all the donuts.
All the donuts are gone. Gone. The coffee is cold. There's some water, but there's not even ice in the water. That's how That's how low budget we are. At least we have cups. That's good. Um, People are slowly coming in. They're probably wondering, what are Dave and John talking about? They're in for an hour.
Yeah.
Great. We're going to give just a couple more minutes. Not minutes, seconds. And let's see here. All right. Let's give 10 more seconds. We can do a countdown. There we go. Get rid of that. And I think we are ready to go. I'm kind of looking at all the folks that have signed on. I see a lot of our friends, Dave, a lot of names that are very familiar. Wonderful, wonderful. So let's begin this. Welcome, everybody, to hard to believe, February. We're in February of 2021, Dave. And here we are, February 2021. We're doing our second Let's Talk of the year. And I've got the great honor and privilege to have authored the International Journal for Direct Support for February of 2021, and it's the second in a two-part series. If you caught us in January, we talked about the first part of this particular two-part series of journal articles, and they're about the Code of Ethics, the NADSP, the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals Code of Ethics. So what Dave and I are going to do today is have a conversation. We're going to dive deep as we can into the second article, and then some. For those of you that are new to this, welcome. What we've done for many, many years in partnership with VITA Community Living Services and HANDS, the Family Help Network in Canada, and of course the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals, we have worked together to have these accompanying webinars to kind of dive deeper into the International Journal of Direct Support, which is published every month and has been published every month for now over a decade. Let me just move the slide here. We have done these, and they have really become to evolve into something really special, I do believe, Dave. They are conversations, and they're meant to be conversations. Yes, we have data, we've got information for you, and wonderful things, but we want to have conversations with the authors of these very important articles, and Dave serves to kind of host those conversations. And that's what I'm going to do today. He's going to ask me some questions. We're going to have a conversation about these articles, and we'll talk about that in a second. We want you to continue this conversation back at work, at home, with the people you support, with your colleagues, because the topics that we cover obviously in the International Journal for Direct Support, they are concerns and issues and important aspects of practicing direct support. And we have had, you name it, in terms of the topic, we've had it over the course of the last 10 years, certainly in the journal, but in the last 4 or 5 years in these conversations that have been had. Some amazing conversations have been had. And we have those in archive in our members section of the NADSP website. You got to be a member to get to those archived webinars. However, the International Journal is available to everybody, and all the past issues are also available to everybody and anybody that's interested. And to get to this month's issue of the International Journal for Direct Support, you go to www.vitacls.org, and that will that will bring up the VITA Community Living Services website. You go to Learning Resources. It's a little drop-down tab, and you hit Direct Support Professionals, and boom, you will come up with this treasure chest of 10 years worth of international journals. I highly advise you to go check them out. Download them. They're in 3 different languages: English, French, and Spanish. And next month, we know what the article is going to be. We don't have the date quite set for the actual Let's Talk companion webinar, but the March 2021 International Journal will be focusing on the 3 Ps in the pod: the pandemic, the professionals, and the people. Dr. Rick Rader and Dr. Mark Macbeth, who did a previous webinar for us, a couple of them, regarding vaccines and COVID-19. They have devoted a whole article, and the International Journal has a whole article devoted to all the aspects of supporting people and also being a direct support professional during a pandemic. So please tune in and look for that. Certainly March 1st, it will be available. So let's get right to this, Dave. I'm the author of today's article, and the name of the article is it's part 2 of the NADSP Code of Ethics. It's 9 codes, 2 stories, and 1 message. A deep dive into the NADSP Code of Ethics, and here it is. Please, if you haven't read it, download it and check it out. Pretty proud of it, and it's really cool. I think there's a lot of good things in this. So I'm the author. If you want to know more about me, Google me. Dave's our moderator, and Dave has been obviously a partner and a colleague and a real trusted friend of the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals for many years, and he's going to guide us through a conversation. During today's webinar, we're going to have some poll questions. I think we have 3 poll questions, so we're going to get input from you. And so let's do this, Dave. What do you think?
Okay, let's do it.
All right.
So before we get to this question, I was thinking while you were talking in the introduction that this particular article has come out in February of this year, and in about 3 weeks we will be at the anniversary of the pandemic hitting Toronto, and people going into lockdown, and people going into situations of insecurity and very much having to do everything differently. Everything they thought they knew, they needed to rethink it. And it seems to me that this is really the perfect time to be re-looking at the Code of Ethics. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, Dave. And I think we were talking before we went on the air. Our industry, our field, has been one that's a couple things. One, we have seen people with disabilities over the course of pretty much the recent history of disability supports. It's been this medical model, right? It's been this thing where people with disabilities had to be, something had to be changed about them. Something had to be even up to the point of cured, right? And with that, the secondary notion of that, there's this power differential that takes place. Whether it is, I don't care if it's a direct support professional, a case manager, certainly a medical professional, there's often a power differential where I don't think we necessarily are power and control hungry if we've gone into this field. I think some people are, but I think it's more about the system and the way the system is structured, right? The Code of Ethics, and as you said, this is a perfect time to kind of revisit the Code of Ethics. The Code of Ethics is designed and it was authored by people with disabilities, family members, direct support professionals, researchers, a whole cross section of people. And this is going on 21, 22 years ago. It was initially published. And even at that time, it was very clear that people with disabilities were in a power struggle often with those that were supporting them. The Code of Ethics tries to not only mitigate that power struggle, but put people in equity, put people on an equal stance. And that is something that cannot be understated in our strong opinion at the NADSP. But certainly when it comes to the role of direct support professionals in a pandemic, when everybody is concerned about not only their own health, but most certainly the health of people that they're supporting with disabilities. And you can very quickly default into overprotection mode. And that could be very dangerous. And I think we've all done it. I've done it. That's almost a human nature thing. But to, like you asked, how this is, or you stated, this is such an important topic right now during such a time when so many people are locked down. People that are, some of our primary mission is to get them free from that incarceration, right? But we've had to all kind of get locked down. But there's a weird balance that we've seen, and we've heard stories about DSPs really being a little bit too protective with people with disabilities. So yes, it's a good time to look at the Code of Ethics.
Yeah, I think it is too. And I have to say, at the very beginning of the article, there was something that you wrote that I found quite poetic, which I want to share with you here. When you're looking at the kinds of goals that people with disabilities may want to set for themselves, smoking pot, getting married, moving to California, coloring in their coloring book, and so forth, and the issue of dignity and risk and all the rest of it. But you said, this becomes the craft of the DSP. It is an art form, a professional obligation, and must always be done with great care and sensitivity. And do you still feel all these years later that this is an art form, that people have to learn how to use it and how to bring it into play and how to make it meaningful?
I do, Dave, and having the privilege of knowing and have worked with so many direct support professionals over the many years, it's quite incredible their creative, uh, how creative they can be. And when I say art form, I'm talking about, you need to. In fact, in the preamble to the Code of Ethics, we talk a little bit about having creative vision. You have to have creative vision if you're going to be a direct support professional, and you've got to have flexibility. You've got to have, sometimes you got to think. Well, I hate the phrase. Sometimes think outside the box, whatever the heck that means. But what that means is you got to think in situations where you've never been confronted with or seen a situation. I'm trying to think of an example where the art form takes off. I have a situation. I remember a time, and it was me that had to be the artist at that time. It was a gentleman who was he had an affinity for Chinese food. And Chinese food buffets really made him very happy. So I mean, and hey, me too. But for him, he would be so happy. He would be visiting the buffet at the Chinese restaurant many times during a sit-down lunch, and that would sometimes create. I think you see where this is going. I think everybody sees where this is going. It would create disruption. He got very passionate about what he was eating. Perhaps the egg rolls were particularly good this day, and and sometimes he got so passionate that he would begin to get very excited physically, and he was the kind of guy that would jump a lot. He would jump. Harmless, absolutely, wouldn't hurt anybody, but it was certainly a distraction at lunchtime in the Chinese restaurant. So, long story short, you have to. What do you do in that situation? Sit down, Tom. You don't do that. to eat your egg roll and be quiet. You know, you can't do that. That's not cool. That's not ethical. And by the way, it wouldn't do anything. He would get probably mad if you said that, and he'd probably go get more egg rolls and maybe throw one at you. Um, so in this situation, what I did, I said, man, I've eaten so much. I need to take a walk. I need to take a walk. Can we take a walk just out in the parking lot? Let's just go to the car and back. We'll come back. But what I did, again, I had a relationship with the Chinese restaurant at the time. We did, because he did need to settle down a little bit so he could enjoy his lunch, because he was just so excited about that Chinese food. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing pathological about that. But in unfortunately the situation, he would have been deemed deviant, and he would have been deemed a nuisance. And I couldn't let that happen. So I guess the art there, Dave, the art form, you got to think on your feet, and you got to think of things that are dignified, respectful, and that is an art form. That's an art form. The Code of Ethics ain't going to give you answers, by the way. There's nothing in it. When somebody is, oh, here it is. When somebody's behaviorally dynamic during a Chinese lunch, this is what you do. It doesn't, you don't have that. So yes, it's an art form, Dave. It's an art form. And I would argue with anybody that it isn't.
Yeah. And I think it can be really hard for it to be an art form when you're caught in that situation, when you want to do your very best to support someone, and yet you're looking at the stares of other diners, and you feel the crush of their expectations on you to do something about the other individual and so forth. And in those situations, it can be so easily pushed in to doing exactly the wrong thing, and start to use your power rather than your ingenuity, which is what really matters here.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
okay, so go ahead.
You said something there. Use your ingenuity and versus your power. And here, I think this is inherently an issue in our system. Largely, Dave, I think direct support professionals are taught, and this is a criticism of the system, not of the trainers or of organizations necessarily, but this is our system. We train direct support professionals things that are very much in line with being in power and in control. And here's an example. Our dear colleague, Dan Hermrich, who I think is probably listening, he's our Director of Certification and Accreditation at NADSP. I've been training and teaching him a lot this last couple of years. He's got this thing he says, and I love it. You know, we're good at teaching direct support professionals what to do when when people that we're supporting are not breathing, and when the building that they're living in is on fire. We're very good. We teach direct support professionals what to do in those situations. But you see, most of the time, the people that we're supporting, A, they're breathing, and B, nothing's on fire. We teach we build muscles in direct support professionals. This is how it's done. This is what you do. This is bloodborne pathogens. This is fire safety. And that is a false sense of, and I believe it's a false sense of your professional function, you know, because when you're in the Chinese restaurant with Tom, and Tom is about to have probably a bad day, nothing you've been trained in when it comes to any of these things that typically direct support professionals are trained in is going to accommodate Tom. And this is what's going to happen, Dave. They're not going to go to the ingenuity. They're going to wind up going to the default, which is often, I got to calm him down with good intention, but I've got to calm Tom down so he doesn't create a scene.
That's right.
You know, so yes, I think you hit it on the head there.
Yeah, it's so easy to forget in those situations that he has a right to be in that restaurant too. Okay. And that's one of the things that people with disabilities have been really fighting for is the right to take up and the right to use space, and to use it differently than you do, because of how we move or how we think or how we may act. But we still have a right to be in that space.
Mhm.
And in those situations, I think it can be, oh God, why did I bring him to this space? Why are we in this space? I need to get him out of this space,
Yeah.
which I think is really the wrong way to go around it, particularly given our history as liberators, which is essentially what we are.
Mhm.
So we've talked a lot about this thing called DSP Code of Ethics. So tell me, what is it?
So it's very simple, Dave. It's right here. It's the link to it is in the chat box. You can link to it. You can find it, excuse me, on our website. It's free. You take it. About 2,000 words, just over 2,000 words. There's a preamble, which is really, really cool. It's almost like this is our compact. This is our contract with people. If we're going to be supporting people in a direct support relationship, this is the framework, the preamble, and then we get into the basically 9 parts, and we're going to look at those in a couple minutes. But it's essentially it's a roadmap. It's a GPS system, right? That's how we like to refer to it. And now, Dave, I mean, I'm one of these. I'm an older person who I remember going to the drugstore, getting an atlas or a roadmap, right? Paper, and unfolding it and then cursing all night long because I couldn't fold it back, and sometimes even throwing the damn thing out because I ripped it. Anyway, if you, I don't know if you've ever used a roadmap or Joe has ever used a roadmap. Does a roadmap guarantee you're going to get somewhere?
No.
But it's helpful, right? It helps guide you.
Yes, it'll get you in the vicinity.
Yes. GPS systems, same damn thing. Same thing. GPS system. And there's millions of stories of plugging in an address in an electronic GPS thing and winding up in a parking lot, 10 miles from your destination. Um, a GPS, a map, that's not going to guarantee a destination and getting to your destination. However, what the code of ethics is in terms of a metaphor for that, these are the things that can guide you in that Chinese restaurant, right? In that Chinese restaurant with Tom, who's having an excitable time that could turn into something negative. So what do? Now, you don't carry the code of ethics around in your pocket as a direct support professional. No, 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 no. You could, but that's a little weird. Um, what you do is you become familiarized with it and you begin the process. And we'll talk about this at the very end. How do you integrate the code of ethics every day into your practice as a direct support professional? So, what you do, it'll help you make decisions. It'll help you make decisions in things that there is no set answer for. And that's what any code of ethics does in any profession. It guides you in times when you could slip into a place where you would be using your intuition, you'd be using your personal ingenuity, which is fine, but you have to couple your intuition and your gut with the profession what the profession requires of you in that position. And each profession has a different you do different things for direct support. And why the direct support code of ethics is so critical is so many direct support professionals work independently. They're not necessarily in a group home or a day program where there's lots of other people around to maybe get ideas from or bat around some type of intervention. I think the code of ethics, when it's used with a direct support professional who might be out and about with somebody and having a difficult moment, it can guide them. And how it guides them, it helps them do what we say, the right thing, in a situation. Now, that's loaded because the right thing for you, Dave, might not be the right thing for me. And the right thing for me might be the right thing for Joe. And it goes on. The right thing has to be what a professional a professional organization or a professional occupation requires of that professional's practice. And that's why a code of ethics exists for pretty much any profession. If it's a bona fide profession, you have to have a code of ethics.
Yeah, and we talked about this a bit earlier, but it's so common when I'm in conversation with direct support professionals and they're telling me about their job. They say, "I just go with my gut," or "I just go with my intuition," or "I just go with what I feel will be best." Um, and I know that everybody is well intentioned with that,
Yeah.
but there are concerns with going with your gut or your intuition or what you think will go well. So why do you think those things need to be added to a code of ethics?
I think when it comes to intuition and gut, and here's the thing. And look, uh, human beings, we are very instinctual. We pick up energy. And I'm not saying this as some, hippie from Woodstock, with burning incense and crystals. That's not my point. My point is that human beings have intuition, and we use that. It's hard not to use it, right? But I think that's not good enough. Not if we're going to have a, a a professional relationship with somebody, especially direct support relationships are very intimate. And that can lead to all kinds of weird stuff and bad stuff too. But ultimately, if we don't have what the profession agrees upon is the way we need to think about people with disabilities and the way we need to behave with people with disabilities, we're destined in those situations where we're using our gut or our intuition, we're destined for it's inevitable bad stuff's going to go down.
Yeah. It always strikes me when people say that is that they're starting at the premise that my intuition is clean, that my intuition isn't stained by the attitudes of the society around me. One of the things that we know, we just did a presentation yesterday on this, that, for example, if you're a man with an intellectual disability who's Black, or if you're a man or woman with a disability who is Indigenous, you are much more likely to be punished, much more likely to be have people afraid of you, much more likely to react differently to you. And that's what worries me about your gut. I don't know what your gut is. How do I know that your gut doesn't have a little bit of racist feeling? How do I know that you've washed your gut through some kind of code of ethics, and made yourself aware of what it is that you're thinking about, because there are so many biases that we have in dealing with other people, and not just other people with disabilities, but other people with different intersectionalities. So who are they, and what kind of biases and prejudices and so forth are we bringing into our decision-making process without us even being aware of it?
Yep.
And again, I do it. My gut tells me what to do. Well, I I don't know that for me. I think that would be a safe thing.
Have we been wrong before with our gut? Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is this is perfect time for a poll, Dave.
Okay, yeah.
It's a good poll. So, all right, everybody who's watching and listening, we got a good question for you. Ready, Dave? You can read it out if you'd like. And here we go.
Have you ever felt that your values or beliefs were different from the people that you support? Yes, no, or not sure. Have you ever felt that your values or beliefs were different than those of the person you support? Yes, no, or not sure.
Wow. Wait, you see this, Dave? Woo! Oh, it's quite overwhelming.
You love
Um,
teasing me on
I
the fact
do.
that you get to see
Yeah.
the numbers come in.
I'm in control. I have power. Yeah, right. It's about the only thing in my life I have any control over. Okay, here we go. Gonna end the poll and launch the share the results. You ready?
Mhm.
Here we go.
So, have you ever felt that your values or beliefs were different than those of the person you support? Um, 40, 88% said yes, 6% said no, and 6% said not sure.
Wow. Wow. And I'm thinking of the implications of that, right? Um, I think it's probably good that Yeah, I think it's good that that you have a different way of looking at things. I think that's very important because I think that's the first step in helping somebody with their path. I think if we don't think we have such differences, that can blur, and I think that can maybe even get in the way of helping somebody with their path, with making a decision, with doing something that they want to do, even though we think it might not be something good for them or something like that. Um,
We are
so,
very good at taking the machete away from people and cutting the path for them.
mm,
We're,
ooh,
we're very good at that,
wow.
and claiming that they're following is anything more than just following.
Think about that. That's a great image, Dave. I've never thought of that's an incredible image. Taking the machete away from somebody and cutting the path for them. Wow. So and that just hit me. A little bit of an epiphany. That's largely what I think DSPs do. Again, not ill-intentional. I'm not saying they're doing it because they're bad or anything like that, but it's almost the way in which we're taught to teach people with disabilities,
Oh, very
right?
much so.
Um,
Very much so.
wow, because the machete's too sharp, it's too long,
Too
and
heavy.
too heavy. And then the metaphor continues. It's somebody that's eventually left on their own in the jungle, and even if they have a machete, they won't know how to use it. So what good is that? So that's not a beautiful image, but I think a powerful image. So man, let me get rid of this poll. Hold on here. How do I get rid of the poll? Here I go. Boom. Okay. Oh.
Okay, so we hear person-centered all the time. What does it mean in light of the Code of Ethics? But before we get to the second part of the second,
Yes.
what's your immediate response to hearing the expression person-centered?
You want my honest answer?
I do.
Bull. Bull poop. Honestly, I think many of us that have been around long enough, I just, and I'm not saying this arrogantly or in any kind of conceit. It's just, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I think it's very, very hard. I think we try to be this thing called person-centered. Let's define it in a second. But I think when I initially hear it, I say, nah, I doubt it. To be honest, I'm just being honest. Um, I think it's very hard to be person-centered in such, and this is Dr. Beth Mount. This is hers. We are a system-centered enterprise largely, and to be person-centered, it's very difficult. I'm not saying it can't be done, but largely I don't think it's done on a wholesale way in our field at this point, Dave. What about you? When you hear it, what do you think?
Um, I've been around for a very long time, and we've we've recycled terms and ideas and so forth over and over again. And this is one that comes back in various forms. Um, and the whole idea here um, is that we're going to make our services person centered. Um, Well, if you were going to do that, why didn't you begin that way? Why did you create this system
Yeah.
that had it to be turned around to recognize the person at the center?
Mm-hmm.
So we've
Mm-hmm.
almost created a situation such that it's impossible to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, uh, how long would it have taken to turn the Titanic around?
Yeah. Oh
You
boy.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so the definition of person-centered, at least according to the Code of Ethics, right? And I'm going to read it verbatim. I know it by heart. As a direct support professional, my first allegiance is to the person excuse me, as a direct support professional, my first allegiance is to the person I support. All other activities and functions I perform flow from that allegiance. That's it. All right. That's the statement of what person-centered supports is when it comes to who wrote it in terms of the Code of Ethics. And these are people with disabilities. These are direct support professionals. This has been identified as what person-centered means. And it's interesting.
but
Somebody
that
just
but that's very different than when you hear it talked about in meetings. We're going to do a person-centered planning. We're going to do a person-centered something else, which is it becomes something done to.
yeah,
It's not so much about the allegiance that the people in the room have with the individual. It's not so much about that allegiance. It's about however we're going to make this map or this plan or uh, this this way. There'll be somebody in the corner with a flip chart drawing little pictures as we speak. Um, that um, that's a very different kind of thing than what you're talking about. What I like about the code of ethics is that sense of allegiance. I can have allegiance with somebody who's different than me, um, who thinks different than me, and so forth. So I think allegiance is a really powerful word.
yeah. And I think, you know, the reality is most direct support professionals, they are very much loyal to
Oh yes,
the people that they're supporting. Absolutely, man. It's really evident. But what happens is sometimes loyalty gets confused with protection. It gets confused with advocacy. We're going to talk about that in a second. What is advocacy? What does that mean? And a lot of DSPs will say, I advocate for the people I support. That's very dangerous. You don't advocate for anybody. That doesn't usually work out well when you're advocating for somebody else. People, and we know this, any civil rights movement, if you study it, people wound up achieving their civil rights through their advocacy, of their perspectives, not somebody else generally. But point of this is back to person-centered for a second, and this notion of allegiance and loyalty. I think the one mistake that is made when we hear this term, um, or if I ask a direct support professional, what is person-centered, what is person-centered support, what does person-centered mean, right? And they say, oh, well, it means that my job is to make sure that person I support, their dreams come true, and anything they want they get. And that's a complete misnomer. No, you're not the Wizard of Oz. You're not Walt Disney. You don't have that power. You have no magic wand. That's out of your control, in fact. And so when we start talking a little bit deeper about what person-centered means, yeah, somebody might have a dream of whatever it is. And that's why I used, in the beginning of the article, I used the things that I've heard. I've heard every one of these statements. And if you read the article, you'll see, I want to go skydiving. I want to get a tattoo. I want to get married. I want to move to California. I want to smoke pot. And the list goes on. There's nothing, well, pot could be an issue, right? Smoking pot could be an issue depending where you are. It could be illegal, so that there's an issue there.
Not
but
up in Canada.
not in Massachusetts in the United States, not in Colorado, not in California, not in Oregon. Boy, I know too many of these states. Here's the thing. All of these things, right? There's nothing inherently wrong with them. But to be person-centered, and we use this example all the time in training, Dave. You've seen it a million times. We use this one because it's very common. I want to get a tattoo. You're supporting somebody that wants to get a tattoo. All right. Is there anything wrong with that? Well, right. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, they have family members that really don't like tattoos. Well, I thought your allegiance is to the person you're supporting. Well, in fact, maybe, well, hold on. Maybe you, as a direct support professional, believe that tattoos are an abomination to the human body. It's a desecration. Maybe you have religious beliefs about tattoos, right? And you think that, oh no, I can't support somebody to get a tattoo. See, that's where it goes off the rails, where one's own opinion, one's own values, one's own beliefs can very easily influence somebody else's decision. Seen it a million times. You probably have too. And it can be subtle. It doesn't have to be direct. Oh no, you shouldn't get a tattoo. It could be very subtle. That's bad. That's not person-centered. That's manipulative. That goes against any of the spirit of the Code of Ethics. But that said, it can go the other way too, right, Dick? So maybe you're a tattoo enthusiast. Look at that. And you're excited that somebody that you support wants to get a tattoo. And you say, hey, let's go right now. Let's go get some ink on your body. That's just as bad. That's just as bad because you're not exploring what this person really wants in that tattoo. Why do they want to get it? What do they want to get? Where do they want it? What does it mean to them? Tattoos are a very personal thing, and the point is, being person-centered is very complicated in a system-centered world, A, and B, even as an independent direct support professional, you practicing direct support, it's very hard to be person-centered. It's very hard. We got to get out of our way so that we can see that person for what they want to do, what their true dreams are. And our influence needs to not be that of advice giving, and controlling, which we can get that way pretty quickly. It needs to be of investigating and discovery and assessment and helping this person with their informed decision making, right? So that's person-centered in light of the code.
Yeah, and I think part of the issue is that for people with disabilities, no matter what it is that they want to do, there are a lineup of people who have opinions as to what they should be doing or not be doing. That could come from professionals, that could come from families, that can come from funding bodies. It can come from a whole lot of different places. And each one of those can really start to intrude on the rights of a person with a disability, including and in particular when they're not their own guardian. They can speak clearly. They know what it is they want. They can tell what it is they want. They can explain it. They can take you through the process. But there's somebody else with the legal power to say no. And that's part of what I think it is to work as a direct support professional, is that you're pulled in every single direction. You have this allegiance to somebody with a disability, but you have almost all these strings attached to you, that want to control what it is you're doing and what your allyship looks like.
Yeah. So here we go.
Yes. So what are the 9 tenets of the Code of Ethics? And could you summarize them, please?
Yeah, it's the Code of Ethics, everybody, friends, it's simple. It's very simple. And it's not simplistic. We say that all the time. It's simple. You take a look at it, you read it straight ahead, really straight ahead. There's not rocket science here. What is difficult, I think, to put this into action is to kind of have this framework of these 9 parts of the Code of Ethics in your background, in your mind all the time. And the only way that can happen is if you use this all the time. Not only use it, as a direct support professional, but use it with the people you support. Have the people you support learn it. We're going to get to that in the next question. But in summary, you've got 9 parts of the code, and none of these are things that we're not familiar with. If we've been a direct support professional for over 2 days, we've heard these statements, we've heard these words, and how these words make a code of ethics. These words turn into ways we think about our job and about people with disabilities. And number 2, behaviors we have to portray. And I'm not going to go through each one of them, but when you look at these, say for instance, confidentiality. Oh my goodness, down here in the States, Dave, we have something called HIPAA, which is it's a federal law. It's about health-related information. It's the Health Information Portability and Accountability Act. And what it is, we get trained, and by law, DSP's got to learn it every year. And it's all about confidentiality. It's keeping your mouth shut when it comes to people's, health concerns. But for a direct support professional, when you've been working 5 years in the same group home with the same 7 people and with the same staff, oh my God, you get very familiar with each other. And, maybe it's time for medication, medication administration window. We've got those windows in our system. I'm sure you got them up in Canada, windows in which medication must be administered. Otherwise, the state will come and give you a problem. So I've seen this. And so here, do a little role play, you and I. Hey, Dave, did you have your Depakote yet? Did you have your Depakote? I don't know if you, and
Is that the pink pill?
Yes. You used to have the pink one. Not the Colace, That's the one that helps you poop, all right? See that kind of engagement? See that silly little, that's a confidentiality breach. Because in a group home where there's 7, 8 people, I don't care if you know each other forever. It's still part of your professional commitment and obligation to keep that kind of stuff beyond HIPAA, at least in the United States. It's about the respect you're going to give somebody. Medication administration, your role as a direct support professional, that's a private, confidential time that you spend with somebody, helping them hopefully learn how to take their own medicine. But ultimately, that's private. I don't want you knowing about my Lexapro, my Colace, and my Viagra. I don't want you knowing about that business. And by the way, I don't take any of those. We'll just moving on, Dave, moving on. So here's the thing. So confidentiality, that becomes, we could spend hours and you could teach people about confidentiality for days. There's a lot to that. Self-determination. As a direct support professional, I will assist the person I'm supporting to direct the course of their own life. Okay, that's great. That's beautiful. My heart flutters. I get goosebumps. You know how hard that is? When somebody indeed wants to do something that might be risky, that might be, you might disagree, back to our intuition, back to our what we feel about a situation. To help somebody with self-determination is fine and dandy, but say that self-determination is something that's going to end up in a very risky situation. So let's go to relationships. Relationships. As a direct support professional, I will support the people that I'm working with to develop and maintain relationships. I didn't say healthy relationships, did I? Relationships. We can't judge somebody else's relationship, but what do we do all the time? We judge the hell out of people's relationships. So self-determination, let's bring that into relationships. What if somebody that you're supporting, full well they're getting involved in a situation, maybe with a romantic interest, that could lead to exploitation. Whatever that might be. There's a million scenarios out there. As well as I do, Dave, people with intellectual disabilities, they are preyed upon by predators in and around sexual exploitation, in and around all these other financial exploitive things. So look at justice, fairness, and equity. As a direct support professional, I will upheld the human rights, the civil rights and the legal rights of the people I support. Also helping them understand their rights and responsibilities. So here you go. You got a triple action thing going here. You got self-determination. Somebody you support wants to get involved in a situation romantically with somebody that you know is likely to be, word on the street and evidence shows that they are exploiters. And there it is. You have justice, fairness, and equity coming into the mix because you can in full conscience, it's going to kill you to see this person go and possibly get hurt. And so what do you do in that situation? There's legal issues there. There's also confidentiality issues there. Who do you talk to about this if you're the direct support professional witnessing this? But you see, let's back up for just a second. See how complicated that is? And having the code of ethics as a backdrop in that kind of situation, as it comes across your desk as a direct support professional, you need something to go by. Other than no, Jill, you're not going to be going out to Joe's house because you know what? He's a sexual predator, and I can't let you go. You can't necessarily say that, or can you? You might want to say that, but that's probably not the ethical way in which to approach that situation. So it's a stew, we like to say. I think Joe Macbeth talks that this is a stew of principles and ideas and actions and thoughts that you bring in to times when you're supporting people. And that's what it is.
One of the things I notice when I see these all listed here is the second one, which is the longest one, promoting physical and emotional well-being. And if you circled emotional well-being, all of the rest of them here are leading to a life where it's possible to have emotional well-being.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah,
that's because that's what you're doing here. You're establishing people as individuals who have voices and choices and life determination and those things. And these are all things that lead to people feeling good about themselves or feeling confident in themselves. Yeah. So I just think that that's interesting that it sort of tags out here at the end, but in essence really summates what all of the rest of them do.
Absolutely. No. Let's get to this next question. I think it's the most important question in the whole deck of questions.
Yes, and we've got 6 minutes.
Oh,
what happens when people with disabilities use the code of ethics with their direct support professionals?
To quickly answer that, things go much better. For the most part, things go much better. In my strong opinion, when I've seen this in play, I've worked over the years with a couple people who have disabilities, teaching them the code. They have subsequently gone and taught the code to whether it's self-advocacy groups or what have you. But people with disabilities, this has to be a two-way street, because otherwise we're going to fall into the trap, Dave, of that power and control. The code of ethics is not something we do on somebody. And that's the muscles that most of us have as direct support professionals. That's kind of when we're taught something like this, it's something we use on somebody. I'm not saying all DSPs, but that's largely the way, we get this training on whatever it is, applied behavioral analysis, right? It's you do it too, right? For the most part. Here's the thing. With the code of ethics, it has to be mutual. And it has to be understood. And if anything, and you said it before, when you so wonderfully caught that emotional well-being, right? That's really, if we're doing all this other stuff, we're creating the safety. We're creating a safe professional relationship, hopefully, right? Where in that safety, in that safe space, we can absolutely, I think, see people with disabilities being much more advocates and much more empowered, because they can say, look, this is a moment where I feel my self-determination is being threatened by you. Or I feel as though right now, yes, it's my choice to hang out with somebody that you might think is an unsavory character. Why don't you kind of look out for me, but I'm going to go test the waters, that kind of thing. And it's a mutual, not only mutual respect, but it's a mutual expectation. It's a mutual expectation. And I think that's, if I could teach anything ever to direct support professionals, it's that. It's, you can't, if you're going to be an ethical practitioner, you have to understand that it's a circuit. It's a two-way street. And then what gets complicated, things come in to threaten that circuit, whether it's a family member, guardian, agency policies, other staff members, your supervisor. But there it is, back to the allegiance. My first allegiance is to the person I support. And that's where that safe harbor is, hopefully. And that can't happen unless the person that you're supporting understands what the code's about. And I don't care how profoundly intellectually disabled somebody might be, they can still be taught, and in ways that they can understand what this code represents. They can be taught, anybody can be taught this code.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that, because people with more significant disabilities are often left out of this kind of process and this kind of discussion. And yet I think by what we know, they should be the first taught, because of the issues that they face and the vulnerabilities that they face as well. So
Absolutely. Last question, I guess.
how can direct support professionals integrate the code of ethics into everyday practice? And you have 3 minutes.
Okay, and it's not, again, this is not complicated. It comes, everybody listening, I don't care if you're a direct support professional, person with disability, administrator, whoever you are, we have to see this particular code of ethics for direct support professionals, the NADSP Code of Ethics. We have to see it more than something that you read and sign, more than something that gets distributed at a training. You need to use it. It comes down to that, those two words, Dave, use it. And use it not on, use it with. That's very important. Use it with your team. Use it with your organization. Use it with the people that you're supporting. And how you do that? You as a direct support professional, if you're a direct support professional, download the darn thing right now. Find it. It's free. Download it. Print it out. Bring it to your next team meeting if you have a team meeting. Bring it to your supervisor. Maybe you're in an organization that does use it. Maybe you have some of our posters around. I know there's organizations that like to get our posters and put them up. I saw a Code of Ethics poster once in a bathroom over a urinal, which was weird. But hey, it was a very good pee for me that day. Got to tell you. Here's the thing: you have to use it. You have to. And one last thing: the Code of Ethics will not give you answers. There's no answers in our field. And I think I'll be the first to tell you, somebody's training you and they say that this is what you should do. I mean, short of protecting somebody from bodily harm or intervening in some kind of abusive situation where you absolutely must act, short of that kind of thing, there's no answers, man. I don't know, Dave. In your years doing this, are there answers for our human condition?
No, but I know what to do when there's a fire alarm.
On that note, oh, Dave, thank you. Anybody that's watching, please consider looking at NADSP membership. We got a lot to offer you. www.nadsp.org. Please check us out. And certainly, Dave, I love doing this with you. I could do this every week. Maybe it's just you and I enjoy it, but I hope other people are getting something out of it too.
I hope so too.
And Angie Nethercott, our silent editor, thank you for all you do to edit and make these journals come to life every month. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to next month. And until then, I think we are about to sign off, and we just want to thank everybody and wish everybody nothing but good things.
Yes, absolutely.
Dave, thanks.
Okay, take care, John.
All right, bye.